You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by Aborn and Company. I'm your host, Tim Dooner, here in studio with, announcing our new president, it's Jill Clifford.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
Jill, I am doing great today, although there's some ragweed or something in the air. It's not good.
No, messy.
Jill, this is like, what, your third time now? You've come on Consulting Logistics, and you got a promotion after the last time. Tell me that's not a great sales pitch for any future guests who want to come on here.
It's true. Spend some time with Tim, and you're going to have more money in your pocket and a new title.
A new title. President, moving on up. Like the Jeffersons.
It's exciting.
Well, in your past episodes, though, we mentioned you've been on 2 other times, which can be found at abornandco.com/podcast. You discussed emerging technologies in logistics and the LTL capacity crisis. And you've told me that those 2 things interrelate. So I got curious, and today I'm having you back on to talk about a piece of technology that you say can do that. It can help you in the LTL capacity crisis. It can move you forward and propel you forward with technology. And as we keep talking about and we keep seeing, supply chains are getting digitized. Sounds like you're falling way behind in 2018 if you aren't adapting to this situation. Well, how can a TMS help us adapt? What is a TMS, Jill?
So TMS stands for Transportation Management System. This technology allows you to bring detailed visibility to orders that become shipments, where you can then optimize them, rate them, route them, ship them in all different modes of transportation, whether it be domestic or international.
That sounds great, but how does it work?
So the orders are transmitted from an ERP, usually. Sometimes they'll come in from a warehouse management system, and they come in different ways depending on the ERP system. You may be getting an EDI file, you may be getting a flat CSV file that you're bringing into this TMS. That's where all of your carrier negotiated rates are loaded, your route guides are loaded. So the orders come in, and you can set all this up so it's automatic, where you put in criteria and some algorithms out that say, ship this only when X happens. So with that, like I said, the carrier rates are loaded, the route guides are loaded, the order goes in, it gets optimized. So if you have multiple orders going to the same customer in the same pickup and delivery window, you put those together and you make them one shipment. From there, the TMS is making EDI and API connections with all of those carriers. So from that point on, your order has now become a shipment, and you have visibility to that shipment right through to delivery. Once it delivers, you then get the EDI transmission of the carrier invoice. The TMS does the entire technical audit, and you're able to pay the carriers based on the output of the TMS. The other thing to keep in mind with the TMS is that you now have all the data elements in there, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but just on a high level, in addition to just running a report to pay carriers, you can do all kinds of reporting.
So the carriers also have visibility of the TMS I'd be using, so they'd be able to see when there's a shipment to be picked up or when there's an invoice to be paid. So there'd be end-to-end visibility for both parties here? Is that what you're telling me?
There are in an EDI environment. So keep in mind, if a carrier's in an EDI or an API environment, they're not logging into this tool to see all your shipments. They're only managing the shipments that we're pushing them via EDI messaging or API technology. They're only reacting to their own shipments. The only other piece of it is if you're working with the right tool, you want to have the ability for those carriers that necessarily don't have this technology. You know, we have clients all over the globe, and we have clients, let's say in California, and they love their dray carrier who's pulling containers off the pier. Well, his name's Tim Dooner, and he has 2 drivers and 3 trucks, and he doesn't even know what EDI means. So what we do with Tim Dooner Trucking is we give him a login and password into the TMS where he goes in and he only sees his orders. And that allows him to make these status updates, which then looks to be an EDI transmission back to the client.
Does he come up before me on Google when you search
I
Tim
don't know,
Dooner?
try it out.
I used to live out in California, Jill.
See?
Sometimes
Maybe that's
I
why
miss
you
it.
came to mind when I talked about dray carriers.
So who operates, manages, and maintains this TMS? It sounds kind of technical.
It is technical. In some cases, companies will have an in-house staff and their own in-house TMS. They would be responsible for buying the technology, customizing the technology, and then getting orders in, rating, routing, shipping, and invoices from carriers. Other companies elect to outsource the work to a managed solution to provide the service, and in some cases, other services as well.
What's the advantage between outsourcing versus insourcing the TMS? It sounds like you have a few different options here.
You definitely do. One advantage of the insourcing, if you have the right people to do it, you need developers, you need folks that really understand how you want to work with carriers, what mode you're shipping in. It gives you the ability to be very customizable, but also be careful about how you pay for that customization because the technology company may charge you for it. It also is a big time crunch. You're going to spend a lot of man hours standing up your own TMS. Conversely, if you outsource it, really your time resource as a shipper is the connection and integration between your ERP, your warehouse management, to the TMS. And if you want the TMS to talk back to that ERP or warehouse management system, that's it. When you outsource it, from that point on, once that order becomes a shipment, that outsourced solution is then they're doing the work to make all the connections with all of your carriers to bring all that visibility that you need of shipments in transit, reconciliation, freight audit, invoice.
Is it cheaper if I just do it on my own?
That's a loaded question. To buy technology is very, very, very expensive. And if you don't have, let's say you're going to buy this technology, you want to spend a lot of time internally knowing exactly what you want out of the technology so that the beginning statement of work with this technology provider is going to be done and done right. What can happen is if you don't understand exactly what you want and they build a solution for you, and then 6 months down the road you say, you know what, I wish it had done that. You're then starting to get into these billable hours and it gets even more expensive.
Transportation management systems. There's something we've discussed a lot on here. But again, as I mentioned at the top, it's mostly been in passing. It's a tough nut to crack, so we didn't really want to dive in there. It deserved its own episode. A number of guests have suggested using them to help in times of crisis, like the transportation capacity crunch that's going on right now and seems to not really have any end in sight. So how does a TMS help shippers to unlock capacity in a year like 2018?
Such a good question. And I can tell you, working in the environment we're in, this TMS idea used to be a passive approach with shippers. And now we have shippers reaching out to us, and the words they're using are, we desperately need a TMS. We must have a TMS. And the reason they're saying that is exactly what you're talking about, Tim. This is the worst market we've seen in 30 years. So if you can have technology support a better way to respond to that market, you're in better shape. And that, right now, that's the core of what you're trying to do if you're running supply chain is get freight picked up and delivered timely and intact. And it's not an easy task right now. It's difficult. And so what a TMS can do to that, one is you can optimize orders. So you have full visibility of all your orders before they ship, and you know what the expected ship dates are and what the expected deliveries are. So with the right TMS and the right algorithms, you can build optimization. So maybe you have 10 LTL shipments that every week they go out as 10 LTL shipments. Well, now you have visibility to them and you say, you know what? 6 of these make a great truckload stop off because there's only 2 customers they're going to. They're all within a day or two. We're going to put those all together. That's going to decrease your transit time, decrease your cost, and decrease your handling. The other big piece of it is, we have it in ours as person comes in the morning and they know right away that shipments are in trouble. Their dashboard almost like punches them in the face.
Yeah.
There's a big, my brothers always make fun of me. They always say my idiot lights in my car should punch me in the face because I don't do anything about them.
Yeah.
That's how, when we were talking TMS, is like, we want to know the second we come in the morning when there is a shipment in trouble. And so that is also what a TMS can allow you to do is we see a shipment that's going to fail. We have the ability before it fails to either pull it from the carrier, expedite it, all with approval, of course, from the client. Or worst case, we have the ability to let that customer know your customer shipment's going to be delayed a day. And then our client can call their customer and say, look, I have some bad news. You're not going to get your shipment. Without a TMS, what happens is our client's customer calls them and says, hey, where's my order? I don't have it yet. It was supposed to deliver today. So it really allows allows you to react to things in the right way.
We mentioned things like shipper of choice and ways to make freight more friendly to carriers, especially in a market where we want to unlock that capacity. So carriers, in the past, they hadn't always been the most technologically forward-thinking people in the world. I think they're single-handedly keeping fax machines alive. Are they becoming a lot more TMS friendly? Is this something actually I could leverage to them now when negotiating my freight?
I'm so glad you asked this question, because as I was answering your first question, I didn't respond to the back end of this TMS, which is the carrier interface, right? This whole shipper of choice thing is a must. If you're not looking at ways to work better with your carriers, you're going to be in trouble. And I'm sure there's folks out there that are experiencing that now. So think about a TMS. We talked about how you as a shipper, it's going to benefit you in these ways. For a carrier, let's say we have a client now that their orders drop into our TMS at 2 a.m, right? They're optimized at 3 a.m. And at 4 a.m, we're tendering those shipments to carriers. So a dispatcher for a trucking company, he comes in at 6:30. He already knows what's going to happen today for those pickups for our customer. They love that. They can forecast. Driver calls in sick. He knows how he needs to react because he knows already what he's got to pick up today. They absolutely appreciate that. And that definitely plays right into carrier negotiations. Look at this as a checkbox in the right column of how we're going to work with you. The other piece of that is the freight bill reconciliation. So that's all done in the tool as well. So there's this no back and forth because the rates are loaded and they're loaded correctly. The invoice comes in. There's no real discussion around, well, you billed us wrong, you didn't bill us right. They're usually very clean. Carriers love that new API technology. Carriers who don't have it yet, it's coming for track and trace. So they're not getting phone calls from you or emails from you looking for shipments and weighing down their customer service department. They're feeding that information to you in the tool. And just in case for the audience, if you don't know, API technology is real-time technology. So think about a driver out with his handheld. He's going to make a stop and say, I'm here. That technology is going to come in. He's going to make a delivery and say, this delivered. That technology is going to come in. EDI is more of a batch. But it's hours of delays. It's not, 2 days later, you're going to get an EDI message that something delivered.
So this all sounds great, and it seems like a lot of people are adopting the TMS, but you mentioned the tech backend. So how daunting of a task is it to onboard a TMS? Do you need an on-site team of developers? Is it do-it-yourself? What's kind of the process here between bringing this system on?
Bringing on a TMS can be very, very difficult. I know for us, it took 2 years of research. It took 2 years of demoing all kinds of systems to really get an idea of what our clients were going to need and how we were going to support them in the now and in the moving forward. If you're going to do the do-it-yourself by the technology, I think it's really important that, one, you have the IT support. They need to know what a TMS is and why you want to use it. Meaning you don't just want to call your van company and say, talk with our ERP department and make a connection. Because you got to think long term of the life cycle of the order in that system and who's going to need to touch it at any point. 2 would be then to have the freight folks that know carriers and know how they work and understand how those folks are going to want to use that tool. One of the things that we don't often sell, but as we're working through many, many transitions into our TMS called Advantage, one of the big advantages we bring is because we have this freight operations experience and we know carriers so well, and then we've gone through so many TMS integrations, we kind of know ahead of the customer what we think the customer might want, and it gets them thinking in the right way. An example of that would be folks have this idea of TMS. It's just going to look at orders that become shipments and they're going to deliver and you're going to pay a carrier. But you have the ability to give your CFO an accrual every week out of the TMS. Would that be beneficial to him? And sometimes when you're integrating a TMS, you're only working with these maybe supply chain and the IT folks. And when you bring that to them, they say, whoa, wow, yeah, they would love that. Great. So let's make sure we're talking to finance. Let's make sure we're talking to customer service. Because they're going to want to use it. They're going to want to know where their orders are. They're going to want to reply to customers. And same with the inbound, the merchandising and purchasing. They're going to be part of this tool. So getting all those people together to make sure all their needs are met at integration, not later. Because later always makes it harder. Harder always costs more money.
So unless your transportation manager has a computer science background, this isn't the kind of thing you just want to purchase and throw on his desk and say, figure it out.
You really don't. I wish it was that easy.
Does it replace anything, though? We've mentioned other systems, but is it a replacement or is it an enhancement suite?
I would absolutely call it an enhancement. You're not going to replace an ERP. You're not going to replace a WMS, but you're going to allow those two systems to talk to TMS and for TMS to talk back to them. So any information that you're running in and out. The other enhancement of it is time. Right from optimizing orders, there's some level of that, I would assume, based on the work we've done over 30 years. We meet customers all the time who are trying to optimize. They're doing it manually if they're not in a TMS. So think of that time that's saved. Think of the time you're chasing shipments if you're not in a TMS. That time is saved. And even freight bill reconciliation, auditing and paying a freight bill, if you're in a manual environment or even carriers are emailing you PDFs of invoice, it's daunting. It's time consuming. General ledger coding, freight cost allocations, that's a lot. TMS can do that. So it can save an organization a ton of time.
Is the data delivered in real time? I mean, nowadays you hear people, email is too slow. Email's not fast enough. You have to wait for people to reply. You don't know if it goes to their junk mail, especially you put an attachment to something. You never know if someone got what you sent to them, or you have to do read receipts and you have to monitor that. It takes a lot of time. So is this data in real time? Can someone just go and check a computer screen, log into somewhere and not have to wait around?
Yes, so the data layered is real time. So we talked earlier about API technology for track and trace. That's real time. The EDI, if you're in an EDI environment, and there's still pieces of this industry that are just EDI. Right now, there aren't any carriers doing API technology for invoice. You can have API technology to get a rate, but not for invoice. So EDI is you're batching messages and pushing them out. The idea will be to make sure if you're standing up a TMS is that you understand what the carrier's EDI protocol is. Well, how many times do they push them out? When is track and tracing updated? Something picked up today, am I going to get the message tomorrow confirmed it picked up? Or is the EDI in the same day? And that's the level of detail you want to get into. So when folks ask you, am I going to get updates in real time? You'll be able to answer the question in the right way because it's a layered answer.
How accessible is it? How do I interpret this data? Because I'll tell you, Jill, I went to art school, so looking at spreadsheets really isn't my forte.
Again, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but it all goes back to if you put good data in, you're going to get good data out. And if you put bad data in, you're going to get bad data out. So that upfront integration is so crucial to your organization when choosing a TMS. I didn't say it earlier, but you asked how you decide. One of the things is making sure you understand what support means in your TMS provider if you outsource it. What am I going to get for support? And you're right, you almost need a degree at sometimes in data to really understand how I can do it. But if you do it the right way, so we have clients you can imagine that are in all different industries, ship in all different modes. And so we do an integration every single time we have a new customer coming into the Advantage TMS, and we make sure it's done the right way. So on the back end, all of that high-level reporting and detailed reporting is being pushed in the right way. I guess some examples. So we have clients who in one order will have 22 items, and we can measure the freight costs. We can break the freight costs out to those 22 items.
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to know how customizable is the way that the data is actually received by the TMS. And the reason I ask this is that all of my clients have very different and unique demands. They're all beautiful and great demands, but they're all unique and different. So I can't just grab one box for them. I need something that has a lot of utility. Some need to track down data to a SKU level. Others want to look at cost per pound or percentage of sales. Does this help solve some of that? Are most TMSs, are they capable?
It's why you want to know what you're buying, because some TMSs are not capable of that and some TMSs are. You may end up in an out-of-the-box solution that you cannot customize, and that's not going to do your business any good. Based on my experience, everybody is measuring freight cost in some shape or form. They don't just want to see anymore, here's the carrier that covered this shipment and here's what I should pay them. They need to see they're measuring freight cost in many different ways. Some of them are measuring freight as a cost per pound. Some are measuring it as a percentage of sales order or a percentage of a purchase order coming inbound. And others are measuring freight right down to their item level and SKU level. There are TMSs that will support that, but not all of them. And that's why you got to be really careful with the one you choose.
So you prompt another question. You beg the next question then. You mentioned the right TMS. How do I go about selecting the right TMS for my company?
There are a lot of TMS solutions out there. 3PLs even offer them. And it can take a ton of time to determine, one, what you need, and two, how to go about choosing a TMS. For us, it took almost 2 years to find the right one. It's a big, big decision and a big financial commitment.
So in regards to outsourcing, you just mentioned 3PLs. Well, that concerns me a little bit because most times I've worked for 3PLs, they have a financial relationship with other carriers or brokers. So they're not really dealing with a full menu of carriers. And if they're managing my transportation, it seems like there could be a conflict of interest in who they're giving my freight to. So how do I know I'm going with someone who's a bit more freight agnostic?
We would always recommend that you go with a neutral partner. Someone who isn't tying any of their revenue to your freight cost. It's not a good position to be in. You then are looking at a solution where in that model, maybe they're a broker and they're offering TMS. They're buying and selling your transportation shipments. And that model, they see your transportation as revenue, not cost. And the technology is just an add-on for them to get more business from you. Their ultimate goal is handling more freight, right? So when they're tying technology costs to potentially, well, we need to be a provider of X amount of percentage of your business in terms of your shipments, that can absolutely be a conflict of interest for you.
Now, you said it takes a lot of research to find a TMS. You spent 2 years looking for one? My question is here, what if you make a mistake? If you bring on the wrong TMS, how is it portable? Am I stuck once I get into one of these things? Is that why the research is so crucial?
You're not stuck. It's just really difficult to stand one up and just as difficult to untie it, right? It doesn't mean you can't, but you think about all the time, just forget money, time, and standing up a TMS solution to only find out 3 or 4 months later it's not suited for you. Then you got to spend just amount of that time untying it and standing it up with somebody else. And I think really that becomes very, very daunting. Very daunting. So it's so important to understand what you want and what's available in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's scary because data purity is so important too. And when you just start moving data around from systems, things get lost in translation.
Well, and I'm so happy you said that because the other thing is when we talk about all these back-end data analytics, what we're seeing in the marketplace, in the market that we're currently in, and it's not going away anytime soon, there are a lot of organizations whose senior level people and even board of directors are now talking about freight. And the way they want to talk about it is if you're one of the supply chain guys in these organizations, you've got to report with data what's going on, not just with your freight, but what's going on in the market. And that has been driving so much of our business right now here at Aborn is really understanding market, but using data analytics to show a client, here's where you are in the market, here's where the market is. And these are some of the things we're doing to help offset some of this market increased cost. We have clients who aren't seeing increases in this market, not to toot our own horn, but we're really able to provide some good solutions. And part of that is the TMS, having the historical data, history and trends to say, look this is an option for you in your supply chain, and this is going to help you reduce costs and make better decisions. And then wrapping all that up so that our customer can go to their board and to their CFO and say, here's with data how we look in our market. Here's our customers that are costing us the most problems with freight or accessorials or detention. All of that data is coming from our TMS.
We just launched a new website, and one of the core elements of our Aborn Advantage Managed Freight Solutions is our Advantage TMS. What is Advantage TMS, and what makes it your TMS of choice after all of this research?
This was our choice after all of this research for a number of different reasons. One is customizable. We can work with many different clients and make sure that they have the ability to see, view, look at freight costs, look at data analytics as they relate in their world. Two, it covers all modes. As I said earlier, and I'm going to say it again because it's very true if you're researching TMS, you're going to find some that are really good in one area and fall very short in others. So understanding your modes and how you're going to use a TMS are important. The Advantage TMS covers all modes, international as well as domestic, and then within that, air freight, small package, truckload, less than truckload, pool optimization, dedicated fleets. If you have a mix of outsourced transportation and then your own dedicated fleet, our TMS can support that. Support that down to the level if you're paying your fleet with drivers, you can assign drivers, social security number. It's amazing what the tool can do. The other piece of it for us that's important for our clients too is our TMS also allows us to do a bunch of benchmarking studies. So it's part of our benchmarking analytical tool. When we're looking at market conditions, we're pulling some of that data analytic from our TMS.
So this all sounds great, but what would you say to a company that has decided, yes, we need a TMS, we need the visibility to our shipments in transit, we want to future-proof our supply chain with technology that can integrate with all the other great things we talked about on here, like AI, we talked about blockchain, IoT, and all these other exciting solutions that are coming through. How do I get it?
So I mean this sincerely, call me. And I say that because we spent so many years researching TMS, and I'm not saying you have to buy our service, but if you're interested in getting some good neutral feedback, we can help you. We've been there, done that. We know the pain it causes. We know the efficiencies that will happen. So please call us. You can reach me directly, 781-659-1321. extension 1322, or you can email me at jclifford@abornandco.com. And I mean that sincerely. Choosing to buy and bring in new technology is expensive. It can be scary. There's some fear around it. But what we're hearing in the marketplace right now is people must have it. And so if you're in that position where you don't have it and you must have it and you need to start researching, please reach out to us and we can help you.
Yeah, they can also go on abornandco.com. There's tons of areas over there that cover our services. There's one dedicated directly to TMS. You can click on there, set up a free consult on almost any page on the website. There's a box to get in touch with us and to set up a free consultation. Jill will know that you are interested in TMS, and she will personally get back to you to walk you through the process and do some of that same research you did when deciding to pick up a TMS. The first step is to start talking to providers, one of which you are.
Excellent. Yep, that's exactly right.
To read our accompanying article on the TMS Advantage, visit abornandco.com/blog. You can find this episode and all of our previous episodes at abornandco.com/podcast, or simply search Consulting Logistics on your favorite podcast player of choice. One more thing here. EFT recently released their State of the Industry report that interviews over 230 industry professionals comprised of shippers, retailers, 3PLs, 4PLs, carriers, and transportation management firms like our own Aborn & Co. So in that report, though, the two primary areas of interest were on tech and in transportation management. So it sounds like all the things that you have said today really go a long way towards answering those glaring needs that shippers have in 2018 and moving forward into 2019. Because Jill, it is September. We're almost, it's going to be Christmas and then it's going to be 2019.
It's amazing. And I do want to say just one more time, I mean it. I sincerely mean if you're really searching TMS, give me a call. Not so that I can sell you something, so I can help you. We can help you kind of start thinking about the right way to think about it as you're looking and searching for providers.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like if you don't have a TMS by 2019, it would be like a company not having a website for their retail department. If you don't have a TMS for your transportation department, it just seems like it's not really an option anymore. It's becoming almost mandatory.
It isn't. It's not an option, which is why I'm super passionate about helping companies and people within these companies make the right decisions.
Well, Jill, thank you for joining us today and lending your knowledge to the show. You couldn't have come at a better time.
Thanks for having me.
Interested in future-proofing your supply chain? Contact a trusted advisor at Aborn & Company today for a complimentary consultation and learn how we have successfully negotiated over $5 billion in client freight expenses. Simply visit www.abornandco.com, abornandco.com. If you have any questions, comments, requests, and guest bookings, email me at tdooner@abornandco.com. That's TDOONER @abornandco.com. For Jill Clifford, I'm Tim Dooner, saying take care and happy shipping.